What's up, hooligans? Happy Thursday. This is Jay Hooligan here.
Hooligan V.
And welcome to another edition of our live lunch. Today we're talking about storytelling.
Wait, it's pre-Friday. We didn't mention that.
It's pre-Friday.
No,
yeah,
Friday
it's Friday
Eve.
Eve. Friday Eve. You like pre-Friday. I do Friday Eve. Yeah, so it is Friday Eve. Hopefully everybody's had a good week, a productive week. Yes, we are going into it. But before we go into there, be sure that you guys like and subscribe to this channel. You can also support us at our Patreon. Become a hooligan yourself. And join our Patreon, patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms. Or you can buy one of our RPG IRL shirts, which none of us are wearing today. That's okay. At thewanderingkillsman.com/shop. So, today's topic. We're going right back into storytelling and filmmaking. How did we get on the subject?
So we were watching a new series last night, and it was kind of, I don't know, we were so excited about it, and then we watched it, and then it was just like, meh.
Just gotta be meh. Okay, so actually it's funny because the what is it, the thumbnail that we made for this, ever since then I've been hearing the theme song to Hook.
What is the theme song to Hook?
It's just like it's like it's like it's like
I don't know that.
It's a
I know the like crocodile thing.
no, it's the leitmotif. Just anyway, it's been in my head. It's been stuck in my head since last night, and it hasn't gone away. Yes, great movie, great movie. Anyway, so we're talking today about storytelling and crafting story for film, obviously for film. And what makes a great story? You need them hooks. Alright, in our system, in the book that we're writing for creating story, because we've studied a bunch of different writing systems, a bunch of different writing groups, and try to see their methods, and kind of combined a lot of them together to kind of create our own. And you constantly hear about, especially in screenwriting, about hooks. What's a hook? It's something to it's essentially like it's something to grab your audience's attention and pull them into the story so they continue to watch your film. Think of it like a fishing hook. It's like, I got a movie. You ever see the video of the two guys, and it's like, fish be like, and there's like two hooks, and they're just like, and all of a sudden it's like, and the other one's still eating, and it's like, no, whatever. And it's still like eating it, and it's like, It's essentially like that. It's a hook. It's something to pull you in. All right.
I mean, they talk about initial hooks a lot in writing when it comes to novel writing.
Well, they don't technically call it an initial hook.
I don't think an
initial hook is our term.
I'm trying to think about it because I thought they were calling it like a hook. Like even like when it came to writing essays, I think they would tell us it was like a hook. We're something to hook in the reader.
Yeah, and I've heard in writing, you're right. Something to hook in the reader from the very beginning, and I think I've heard
like not initial
opening,
hook, but hook.
Yeah, I've heard opening hook. Opening image is the one that usually comes up, and that's in filmmaking, right? So, I think I've heard opening hook before, but
I'm trying to remember exactly what the term was. I don't remember it exactly. I know hook was part of it because like they always told us hook the audience. Right?
Yeah. And we made the differentiation. I'm just like all over the place. I'm like, I'm still a little tired. I'm sore everywhere. Anyways, but we've always heard opening image, and your opening image is technically supposed to be a hook, but it doesn't have to be. All right, case in point, the opening image for Avengers is a series of what was it? It was like Thanos handing over the scepter to Loki. It showed flashes of the images, showed the Tesseract, and it talked about, it was like you hear them talking about a human world that they're gonna attack, okay, and it's like, oh well, we're a human world. It's crazy. They're gonna come attack us. Anyways. But that's an opening image, but that's not necessarily an initial hook. Like, okay, there's a bunch of flashes of images, and that was like 43 seconds long. All right, but the opening image, or the excuse me, that's the opening image for that is different than the initial hook. The initial hook was actually Nick Fury with what was it with on the underground with the Tesseract, and they get attacked, and that ended up being like a few minutes long. Okay, so when Loki actually comes in and takes the Tesseract, that is your initial hook, because just showing flashes of images is not necessarily a hook. Okay, just having a little monologue or narrator speaking is not necessarily an opening hook. Right? That's not saying that it can't be done that way. It's it has to still pull in I guess we should define it a little bit more.
Like, what do you mean, the initial hook thing?
Yeah, like what makes it an initial hook besides just pulling your audience in? Like, we have certain criteria that we follow.
I feel like it would be just pulling your audience in, but it would also be, oh, you said that already.
Yeah.
But it would also be like what it establishes, right? What it establishes, and like that. I guess I want to say action, right? It would be action, not like, but something that would gain the attention of somebody, right?
Well, yeah, that's grabbing your attention. So,
but I'm trying to think of like how the right word. So I want to say action, but I know it's not action.
No, okay. So here it actually goes right into our explanation of how we define that in our how we're defining it in our book.
Like, how do you actually define that? It's like, I know what I'm looking for, but.
Yeah, I know. It's been a bit because we kind of put that aside for a minute. To actually work on film stuff. Anyway, so the initial hook, what you're looking for in there, it obviously, it needs to establish the tone, right? It needs to establish some sort of conflict. It doesn't have to show the antagonist, but it has to show a brewing conflict, okay, of some sort. But the style and the tone is going to set the pace for the rest of the movie. So if you've got an initial hook, and and just to clarify too, an initial hook does include an opening image. The whole thing could be the opening image, or you can have a little separate thing, like I said, for like Nightmare does that. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Raiders of the Lost Ark too.
No. Right? Raiders of the Lost Ark is just an initial hook. That whole opening scene is different.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, but Nightmare on Elm Street is
the original.
The original Nightmare on Elm Street opening image is, the series of shots during the credit roll where Freddy Krueger is making his glove. However, that's not the initial hook, because just because you see some dude grabbing like little blades and like his glove doesn't mean anything. It's not until he tears open and I forget the main character's name. Oh my gosh! Actually, it wasn't even the main character. But she, the claw rips through what looks like skin, this whole layer of just skin. It looks like it came from the inside, and it's right in the dream world, right? It's in a nightmare. It's weird. It's like Nightmare on Elm Street starts in a nightmare, right? But that sets the tone for it. It sets the look and the feel of the rest of the movie. And it's not the opening image. It's actually included in the initial hook. The opening image was Freddy Krueger making the glove, but you don't even see him, so it's some unknown force. And then into the nightmare. Okay? Absolutely pulls you in. It's like, oh. It's like what
sets the tone,
yeah.
Sets the story.
Like setting a question of like, what is this? I don't know what this is with a montage. Like I said, Freddy Krueger making his glove and stuff. Or in Avengers, you see this weird alien army and this high contrast, so it's hard to see. It's very short images that they're showing. What's this square, blue glowing object? They're literally flashing these things in front of you, and you're just questioning it. It doesn't necessarily hook you in, okay? But the conflict of what this is and what everything else is going to look like, what the story is about, is going to pull you in. That's what that hook is. This is what the story is about.
It's like what's to come. It's like, well, what is that? What's going to happen,
Absolutely. Okay. So, this came up because we did start watching a new series while everyone was eating dinner. We're like, yeah, it's just we're really excited to watch it. It's called Shadow and Bone. I don't want to burst anybody's bubbles. But we watched the first episode. And oof, this is where it gets a little hairy. All right.
Let's start with the positive.
Okay, it's positive. That fantastic trailer looks like it was going to be a great fantasy film, right? Fantasy series, excuse me. Was super excited about it. Looks like it's got a lot of great elements. There's a lot of great style that's added to it. Wonderful production value that was put in there. What else? It was almost like
I kind of
The
like.
Last Airbender ish, but it's not
Yeah.
in that. It's not
It
that
had
same
a-
world, but it's like
It had a very interesting like style and production value to it. Like the costumes were very interesting because they varied.
it was almost like, I hate to say an alternate universe or alternate timeline because it's not. It's still a fantasy, but it's like it's influenced by a lot
Yeah.
of older, like older stuff. I think what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of like old Soviet Union, some of their stuff that the designs
Yeah.
that they had. That's what it felt like.
Well, that and like, come on, one of them looked like he was part of the mafia.
Well, yeah. So
I was
they had
thinking it was
different
varied.
styles. Yeah.
You know, which is cool though, because then I mean it's like, oh, people can have different styles and different versions, you know,
Absolutely.
of these characters.
Yeah.
Here's
Here's the problem. None of that. Actually, here's the bigger problem. I was gonna say none of that was in the initial hook, and the biggest problem with the series of
Are we going to the problem
biggest? Oh, I guess so. I don't know.
I was like, because I can say like with the beginning of it, I get where they were going with it, and I didn't mind it because I've read so many like, you know, of those types of books,
What
like
do you
the
mean?
what is it called? The YA books, the young adult books. They start off with like that, but when you're
They start out
reading,
like what?
when you're reading them,
What do you mean? It
it's
starts
like
that?
you have the main character talking and explaining like stuff to them, like what's going on in their life, or like it's kind of like a setup almost.
Okay.
But that's for when you're reading,
Okay.
right? So
You
I can
still-
kind of see where
okay,
they're going with it.
But you still need something that's going to bring your audience in. What is this story about? It's like
True.
you're set that you just said you're setting them up for what it is. Okay, if you're just talking, this is my life. Like this is where I came from, and like nobody cares. Who the hell are you? We don't care. That's established in your normal world, which is part of your act one. After your initial hook, because if you don't, it's almost like going, you're walking up to somebody on the street and you're just like, this is my life. When I was born, I was, I weighed this much. I was born in this city. And then I went to this elementary school where I was picked on, and this stranger would be like, why the hell are you talking to me? That's, just
right.
go
But
away.
I want to know, like, I would
Go
want to
away,
know
go
because I
away.
never read those books, like whether or not how it went.
Okay, but that's what I'm talking about. You gotta if you're gonna reread and go look into that, that's different, But there has to be an initial hook, right? Versus like say that. Okay, it's okay. That was one thing. Like you just walking up
Are
to a
we
random
looking at
stranger.
that?
Hold on. It's just like you're walking up to a random stranger and you're just trying to tell your story, and they're just like, I have no reason to listen to you. Versus you're coming down this rural neighborhood in a monster truck, and you're just like, you come out, you step outside, and like, welcome, folks. I got a story to tell you. That's your initial hook. It's your opening image, and it's like, what the heck is this dude in this monster truck just driving down the street? You want to know. You're curious about it, but it's like, oh, I got a story to tell you. But it starts all back when I was young. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, why does it start when you're young? At least that was something to hook. And then and again, that could be an opening image, but it's still something that makes you curious of how did it get to this point? I wasn't always in a monster truck, but how did I get one? Let me tell you the story.
Right.
And now it's like,
From
Tell me.
what I can remember, it's like I don't remember the dialogue of what she was saying, but I do remember the images were interesting. I
okay.
don't remember.
Yeah, going back to Shadow and Bone again. Yeah, we'll move on to what's.
Okay, go ahead.
whatchamacallit.
Cause
Well, no. Finish what you're saying.
no, I mean that's I know. I forgot what I was saying.
You were saying the images. You don't remember what she was saying,
I don't-
but you remember the imagery.
Yeah, I don't remember the dialogue. I just remember the imagery was interesting because it's like
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't all that interesting either, because it was all flashbacks. Let me tell you about
was
my
it
life.
flashbacks?
Yes.
I thought it was inside the thing,
What?
inside the dark.
No, dude. Okay,
Oh.
this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I
This
don't
is what I'm talking about.
remember.
Your opening image versus your initial hook are two different things, and your opening image is a part of your initial hook. Okay, it was 14 seconds long, their opening image, and we thought that was going to be the hook because it went right into like, this is who I am, this is where I came from, this is what I'm doing, this is my life, these are my friends. It's like, dude, what? Like, nobody cares. I have no idea. I didn't even know her name. I still didn't even know her name.
What
you
is
know,
her name?
Yeah, I don't even know the protagonist's name.
I didn't
Like-
find out till the end. Actually, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was. As I say, it wasn't until the end. It was an hour through, and I was like, oh, because now they actually highlighted her name, and it's not that they didn't say her name. It just was like it was so much in passing, and it wasn't said enough. It was said like maybe a couple times throughout the whole freaking series or series episode. And it wasn't until it was highlighted of like the importance of her, of why she's supposed to be important by the end. And if they're trying to make the entire first episode as your initial hook, that's an hour into it. How are you going to hook people? You have to hook people in the first like 5 minutes. Yeah, after the first 5 minutes, if you haven't hooked your audience, they're gone. You've lost them. They're not interested. Again, this is my life. These are my friends. This is where I was born. This is like nobody cares. That's the thing. Nobody's gonna care.
I kind of liked her guy friend that she grew up with.
Oh yeah.
No.
I didn't say it.
Well, like just like his story because it kind of. I feel like it kind of explained him
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay, so right from there, if we were following him, what was his opening image for that and his initial hook? What was the first thing that you saw from him?
The fight.
No, it was not. No, it was not.
Are you sure?
Yes, it was, because it started to, and I guess this is sort of spoilers, but this is very in the very beginning of it. The very first thing was like, oh, they're talking about going into the fold, and this was after the whole initial hook, and it didn't come in until after she's explaining all like all this stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, you see this whole mysterious fold, but they don't do anything. Like, oh, they didn't even talk about the conflict of what it is or what's causing the problem. And if they did, it wasn't even that. I wasn't that big of a deal into it.
They were like, oh, we can't go north and we can't go south. We have to go through.
But that wasn't in the
that's
initial
it.
hook. That was in the normal world.
Oh, was it normal?
Yes.
Yeah, I completely forget.
I think that's the thing. This is why it's important to just hook you. Get something interesting in there. Like, oh, look, there's a fold, and yeah. So here's a problem with, and this is why typically for a lot of initial hooks, you don't necessarily. I think in ours we used to go like it introduces the antagonist and the brewing conflict, or at least alludes to the antagonist. Like I said, you don't have to show the antagonist, but it has to show what the conflict is. I still don't really know until the end of episode 1. I was like, oh, so these are the antagonists. That's what this world is about. It's, like.
I don't know. It wasn't interesting enough for me to want to continue.
Okay, I know, and I'm like, I want to give it a chance because it looks like it was really well done, in terms of like production value. But again, if the all right, what I was trying to say, I'm trying to go back to that point and try to finish that thought. All right, there was no initial hook. It literally started out like, this is my life. That's it. That's why we went back to go look, and it was like 14 seconds. It's technically an opening image. It showed in the fold and in this broken down ship with on dry land, because they have these it looks like it was a skiff, I think is what they called it, but it was on land, going over land, and then you see some winged creature behind the sail. Again, great looking VFX, great looking opening image for that. Not an initial hook. And then it goes right into her, like, blogging, But it wasn't of anything interesting or anything to, like, and I think it wasn't her blogging, it was her drawing and mapping stuff. And I think that's where actually opened in was they're in this the back of,
Foreshadow. She's mapping stuff.
don't start. But it's like they led off with, if I remember it correctly, again this, huh. It's so bad. Like we watched this last night, like less than 24 hours ago. We watched this, and I've already forgotten it because
brain dump.
The brain dump, because it was just not interesting. There was no hook, dude, and it was like, that's what I was trying to remember, because I think it started in the back again. She's drawing and she's shading in. She's making. I guess she's supposed to be like a map maker or something, and she's shading in something and she's drawing. That's literally the first thing I think you see after her face, from after the opening image for that. And then it's like she's in the back of I want to say it's not a Humvee, but it's like she's in the back of a vehicle stacked with a lot of her friends, and one of them tries to give her crap for, like, oh, how can you do that in this bumpy ride? And she's like, oh, the bumps add texture or something like that. And I'm like, okay,
huh?
What's yeah?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, what's the conflict? It's nothing. It's if they did end up by the fold, it's like, oh, okay, well, you showed all that stuff in the trailers, but why the heck should I be watching this? What's the conflict? It exists. That's the conflict. That's not how that works. Anyway, so having an initial hook that's gonna bring people in. It's really important. Okay, so let's. So aside from all of that, this is where it all started from. All right, that's a whole long explanation of why it came from. I'm gonna give it another go. Hopefully, the later episodes are gonna be okay. But an entire hour went by, and it was just kind of like, what the heck, man? And I think I had the same sort of problem. Well, I can't say I had the same sort of problem with Luke Cage, because the thing was, it wasn't that. It was that the entire first episode for Luke Cage was your Act 1. And I'm like, oh. And when you're doing episodics, okay, here's the tough part about doing episodics or series, right? You have to have a series arc that it follows, which can still have an Act 1, an Act 2, and Act 3. But also, each episode has to have those elements of it. So it's like giant series arc, and each episode has its own story that it's building up into this giant series arc. So it still has to have an initial hook. It still has to have some sort of conflict. It still has to have some sort of resolution, whether it be open-ended or solved or not, right? It's still got to follow that, so then it can bring people in. Great example, Queen's Gambit. You still haven't finished that. You haven't finished it. You started it, and that was what you call it. But Queen's Gambit. What's the very first thing that, and I know exactly what it was for the opening image. The very first thing that you see in episode 1, Queen's Gambit, was she wakes up frantic. She's like, it looks like she's drunk. She's hungover. She drinks. Right. She goes out into she's going out into a lobby where she sees like a little kid, and just like, oh yeah, it was a kid, and I think it was their dad, and she's trying to like keep her composure and everything, and she's trying to get dressed and be composed, even though she's like, looks like she's hung out at a night of drinking, some stranger in her bed, right? And she walks out trying to compose herself, goes up right up to the dude sitting at a chess table. I'm sorry I'm late. She stands up, shakes her hand, they sit down, boom. Started. Tone. Conflict. Right? Impersonal story. Boom, 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 boom. Initial friggin' hook. Episode 1.
You know which
Sorry, it's my rant.
series that you had a hard time getting into was The Haunting
Haunting of Bly Manor. Haunting of Hill House, not Haunting of Bly Manor. That's the second one. Haunting of Hill House, yes. Because I don't remember what the.
I don't remember the opening.
I don't remember the initial hook or the opening images with it. But what bugged me was, again, it's that whole other execution, which is beyond the scope of what our topic is, which is, again, kind of like Luke Cage, where episode 1 was all of your Act 1 for your series. And I don't think that's what they did with the Haunting of Hill House, I think what bugged me, it was like they were repeating a lot of stuff because but I get why they're doing this, because they were doing different perspectives each episode, like the first few episodes. All right, but anyway, it still has to have something that's going to bring you in, and if it doesn't, it's this is why running off again. And that was one of the things I and this is anecdotal. It's not necessarily like how they advertised it, but one of the things where somebody had mentioned, like who used to be on my friends list, I was doing like, dude, WTF, was really hoping to see like Luke Cage being something much bigger than what it was advertised, and then all of episode 1 there was like nothing of interest going on. It was like, why the heck? I still don't even know why the heck I should care about this guy. Great, he's got things going on in his life just like everybody else. So what? I had no idea what the conflict was going to be, and somebody was like, well, he's a strong black man, and I'm like, I don't care. You still gotta show me why I should give, well, I'm sore. Why I should care at all. Why I should care about the story that he's gonna tell. Again, stranger comes up to you like, this is my life, these are my problems. You should listen to my problems. Like, no, that's just dumb. That doesn't work that way. That's not how it's supposed to be. So, kind of going back to the whole style of like diary, like, dear diary, we're going to talk about this, right? There are great opening images and initial hooks that are or initial hooks, I should say, not just opening images, because it's all part of it, which are executed really, really well in that style of
I agree.
Background. One of them that comes to mind, I think we were just talking about it. You remember?
I'm remembering.
Wolf.
Oh.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf. I brought it up, and I don't remember that I brought it up.
Dude, yeah, it was like you brought it to my attention. I was like,
looked it up.
Wolf of Wall Street starts out with Leo freaking monologuing, and he's essentially doing a Dear Diary, but it's like Dear Diary. My favorite things are drugs, cocaine, quaaludes. It's like
Cocaine and drugs.
Yeah, cocaine and drugs and whatever. And it's like it's just like Anyways, it's like those are my favorite things and money, but. And it showed, it was a series of shots, and he's monologuing, he's narrating to the audience the same way that this girl was in Shadow and Bone, but it was like it set the tone. You knew he was a shark, right? That was what was interesting. Like, oh, this dude's life is like, whew, versus like, I grew up. It's like, okay, it's like it's not this one. It's I guess it's like I grew up as. There's a quote from The Jerk. It's like, I grew up a poor black child. And that was Steve Martin, who, if you don't know, he's a white dude. But he's a comedian. But that was the thing. It's like, I grew up a poor black child. That sort of thing. It's like, what? And then it's like he's being just stupid. And then there go The Jerk. He's acting dumb. Like, he's acting dumb through the whole thing. Right? But at least that set the pace for the rest of the story. Hers is like, here's how my problems. You should listen to my problems. Oh, look, there might be...
Oh.
There's a conflict between the North and the South. Look at the map. Or otherwise they're going to put a rifle in your hand. Okay. You got problems. So what? What's the conflict? Is it the North and the South and the we can't go left and right? What is the conflict?
Attack.
Yeah, the Fire Nation attack, they try to attack, the Northern Nation attack, but then the Southern Nation is like blocking you off so you can't go. Why do you have to go across this dang fold? What's the dang conflict? I have no idea. Still have no idea.
Did they do that in Twilight? I can't remember.
We don't talk about that.
I just made this,
like I said, there's it takes a lot for me to not finish a movie. I've watched horrible... Dude, we watched The Street Fighter. Not the Van Damme, like, 90s
I got into
Street
it
Fighter.
at some point.
The Street Fighter, the 70s Chinese film of, like, the horribly dubbed... Was it Chinese or Japanese? I forget. I think it was Japanese.
I don't know.
Horribly dubbed. This horribly dubbed film of, like... Just, it's on Amazon. I think it's free. It's on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime. It is on Amazon Prime. It is for free. Go check it out.
The second one's on there too, right?
The second one, Return of the Street Fighter. I don't know if that one was free, but no, I think it was because we're like we should put it on. Complete like B movie, martial arts B movie. Like there's nothing of interest. We literally put it on the background, and just because we We were entertained at the pure fact of it was just completely horrible. But we finished it.
I don't know. I didn't like it at first, and at some point it started to really grow on me, and I was like, I enjoy this really bad movie.
But that's the thing. It's like, you're like, okay. It takes a lot for me to not finish a movie based on the fact of it being horrible. That being said, Twilight is one of those few exceptions where it was like, and they might have had an initial hook, and they might have had the a good first act. You know, it ends on your inciting incident, which moves right into your second act. But your main character, Bella, oh my lord, we call her a cork in the ocean. She almost makes zero decisions throughout this thing. It's like, no, wind's blowing this way, I should go this way. Oh no, wind's blowing this way, now I'm gonna go that way. It's like, nothing she does is active. She does zero things. That's a whole other issue for that. But I don't remember the initial hook if they had one, because again, just the rest of it took me out of it. And that's again, the rest of that took me out of Luke Cage. Like I really wanted to see it because it was being talked about a lot. Same sort of idea. This thing, it's like I wanted to see. What was it?
It's literally a deer being hunted is the opening, and then it cuts to her moving and her internal dialogue.
So it goes into her normal world.
Think. Yeah.
Which normal world is essentially what
dialogue.
follows what follows your normal world is what's established following your initial hook. After you do an initial hook, and this is for long versions. Again, you can include these into short films. However, short films are their own type of beast. Yeah. Shut that thing off. Short films are their own and own types of beast for that, and that's because a short film can essentially be any part of a story. It can literally be just one scene. Okay, but there still has to be something interesting about it. So, case in point, the opening image and initial hook for Deadpool was used as their proof of concept that they leaked. Okay, it showed like, oh, it's Deadpool and he's drawn stupid little things, listen to his old music, and I hate saying his old music 'cause that's my music. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm talking to you. It's like, oh, I'm here to kill bad guys. So you already get the Ryan Reynolds version of how he's gonna speak, and then it goes right into the action of him just taking, kicking A and taking names, and how it's going to set the tone for this. And that's literally used as your initial hook. The initial hook was filmed as a proof of concept. There was technically one scene, right? This is the whole thing. It established a conflict. Oh, well, he's after this. You thought this was going to be you thought this was going to be a love story. It's like,
right, because it came out.
Maybe you lied to your girlfriend or something like that. Yeah. And it's like, oh, you're wrong. Like, this is a revenge story. And it goes up. And again, but that's the whole initial hook for it. And I forget how long that one was, but it was a good amount. But you can have a lot of stuff happen in your initial hook, even if it goes beyond 5 minutes. What's another one we're talking about that was a really long initial hook?
Initial hook?
Yes.
Jurassic Park? Does that?
I know you're
Jurassic
looking.
Park has a 3 minute.
No, I'm talking about like long, because like you want to hook your audience in by within 5 minutes. If you don't hook them in by 5 minutes, I'm talking about initial hooks that can go beyond. Yes, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's an older movie, but what's the I keep saying opening image. That's the first one that we came across. What's the initial hook for Raiders of the Lost Ark? Right, it's the boulder scene. He's off on an adventure in some foreign land. In some foreign land where he's going after a treasure. He's a treasure hunter. Sets the tone. There's action. There's adventure. There's thrills. There's all this stuff right in the first one. And how long was that one?
It's over 10 minutes. I couldn't even get the whole opening scene on here.
And that wasn't even it. That wasn't even the whole thing. But that was a long initial hook. Because the opening image, from what I remember from there, was a match cut. It was a match cut from Paramount's Mountain to. It was Paramount's Mountain to where he was headed, and it did a match cut to to another mountain. It wasn't the same mountain, but yeah, That was the thing. That's your opening image. It's not the initial hook. The old initial hook was that he's going in and he's treasure hunting. And then you establish after that. Again, once you establish something interesting about your character, your world, and the conflict and what's going on about it, or just setting the tone for everything, then you go into, okay, this is why, that's essentially going, this is why you should care about them. And then you go into their normal world. This is the normal routine. This is what they do. This is other parts of their story, what matters. Okay? And then it builds like, oh, you know, something that's not typical. You got a treasure hunting archaeologist going out there, you know, and he's literally dodging a giant boulder.
All these
He was gonna crush him.
boulders being like attacked by what, like this village,
Lots
and
of stuff,
being
yeah.
hunted because he grabbed something that wasn't supposed to be grabbed, right? So it's building that tension for that character already.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it gets it taken away by somebody who is also a foreigner, right?
I believe so. Yeah. So, but again, that's such an iconic initial hook. You know, everybody knows Indiana Jones, like, ah, giant boulder, ah! So many different versions of it, right? That go on. But again, it established the world. It established some sort of conflict. Dude, it even foreshadowed a lot of that stuff. You're going after things that are forbidden, right? And that was a main theme. Now, your theme does not necessarily have to be portrayed through your initial hook. Okay, that can be established during the normal world, and it's usually presented as such, along with a little bit more of maybe possibly the antagonist. Again, it depends on the style of story or what elements of your story when you're revealing the antagonist. But usually there's some sort of strife in the normal world, which again is after the initial hook. You gotta pull them in. You have to pull them in.
I mean, Jurassic Park kind of foreshadowed that stuff too, with dinosaurs getting like out of hand.
What do you mean? Show me.
Well, with the opening scene.
I'm trying to remember
the opening scene
I'm
where
trying to remember.
they're trying to
Oh
the
yeah.
raptor in, and then
They're-
like the guy is taken in. Like
Yeah. So
you can't control them.
you can't control them. Yeah, it's like you see these giant, structures, and you're like, what's going on? These people are like trying to move something, and you hear
It's all
that.
going well.
You hear
and
that.
there's-
Yeah, the dinosaur screech. You're like, whoa, what the heck was that? And then somebody gets killed. What the heck? You already know you're going into this because of the trailer that it's going to be a dinosaur movie. But, bam! Initial hook, conflict. We can't control
Chaos
them.
theory.
Somebody killed them. As with all these measures in place, without Nedry screwing it up, they still had problems of controlling nature in that sort of way.
'Cause,
Theme and
you know
brewing
why?
conflict, right? Didn't necessarily show the antagonist, right? Though no, it didn't really show the antagonist, right? But it showed some sort of conflict. It showed the world. It set the tone for everything.
You know
Boom.
why? Because life finds a way.
Oh,
Speaking of which, the opening image for Lost World, right? You have the family on the beach, right? That's pretty iconic too, though.
Yeah.
And then you have the scream and a match cut. Remember?
Okay. That was an homage, though. That was an homage.
That was
to,
nice. But that's
Was that the Lumiere brothers?
was
that
it?
did that? Yeah,
I don't-
because it was supposed to be. Lumiere brothers. If you don't know the history of that, they shot more cinema verite. Again, they were more testing out a lot of this when I think they made their own camera, and they ended up shooting an angle of a train coming towards the camera, but they were obviously on the platform, and it was coming towards the camera, and the audience like jumped, and then I think they cut to a woman going like ah, and what you hear I think you hear the train like whistle, and they're like ah. And then it's actually not the same. It's like she's supposed to be screaming, but it was actually a train whistle. They did the same homage to with Jeff Goldblum when there's like you see the scream and he's like yawning though, and he's like oh.
Yeah.
It's like sort of say. I'm pretty sure that was Lumiere brothers because I'm thinking of that. It might have been. That might have been something different. I just know that it reminded me of the train coming in because the audience was like, oh my gosh, the train's coming toward me. And I might be completely wrong because that was a sound, that was an audio thing, and Lumiere Brothers was before that. So, scratch that. My film history is a little rusty, but I promise I will brush up on that and maybe verify that in the next video. Maybe not. Yeah. Because that was like, yeah, there was a couple different things that reminded me of it, and I think it was just because it was train, you know, because he was yawning, but it was like a train, you know. And it's funny because they cut the scene that was initially there with them talking in the boardroom about that stuff.
Yeah.
That he went to that.
But I felt like it flows better the way that they have it
Oh,
now,
yeah.
and it's just so like iconic. Like you honestly have a lot of like, well, not a lot, but you have a good majority of people who enjoy those movies who like that, like our mentor.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I take that back. I don't think it was Lumiere Brothers. It just reminded me of that because of the train. That was what it was. But I'm trying to remember what it was from. But it was an older movie where it was like that. You hear the train, like someone's going to scream, and it was a train, and then they cut to whatchamacallit. That's what it was. Was that Orson Welles?
I
Hitchcock.
don't remember.
Dude, I know. I'm like, I gotta go back to it, but I just know that was an homage to that, and it did cut way better than just like, we're in a boardroom, we're establishing conflict, guys, by being expository.
Yeah. Versus just showing.
Yeah. Show, not tell. You're in a visual style medium, even though your auditory, experience for that is still a huge, huge part of that, and your sound designers are massively important for it. But again, I know that wasn't that another trend that we're seeing in some of the other series, even the Netflix one, Dear Diary, and you hear all the internal thoughts,
actually,
and it's like nobody wants to hear all that stuff.
I think they're doing that a lot lately. I'm trying to remember The Order. Did they do it with The Order?
I don't remember.
I think
it might have been that.
The guy was doing like something
Order.
similar. The Order, where he goes to like college and it's like there's witches and werewolves. And
I don't know if they. I don't remember if they did that with him. I'm
I
trying to
wanna
remember
see
that
what they
one.
did.
I'm trying to remember that one, which reminded me of one of our stories,
Ugh.
and it was the girl who had the was it the cross or something in her back.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what the series was.
Netflix series, but again, it was just like over expository. You want to over dude. I talk a lot. You've been watching any of these freaking videos, you know that I can just blah 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 blah. So, but that's. I'm not here to try to make a story for you to follow. Okay, I'm just explaining crap. Nobody wants to sit in a film that they're trying to enjoy for entertainment to just be like blah 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 like this is my life, this is my life, this is where I came from, these are my friends, these are my problems, you should care because I said so.
You know who also does that? Avatar: The Last Airbender. Their opening image. Or their opening credit, right?
What are you talking about?
The
movie?
series.
Okay.
Why did you talk about the movie? We don't talk about the movie. Just like Twilight. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't
okay?
exist. And I actually finished The Last Airbender. Tell you how bad Twilight is.
Oh, you finished the whole movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Dude, I finished that. Dude, I finished Dragon Ball. These are horrible ones, by the way. Which I think we're gonna do an anime live action video. We mentioned that like a couple weeks ago, but it's on the agenda. We will do one. Okay. Anyways, but yeah, just.
You don't even want to talk about it.
You said the series.
I was talking
What are you
about the series, like the opening, but I think it's like the opening credits where you have Katara talking about like the Avatar, and like.
Yeah, you're talking about credits, dude. You're not. That's different.
I'm trying to remember now. I was like, I don't think it is the opening image. I think it is the credits.
That's the credits. That's not and again, it's not an opening image. We're talking about initial hooks, which includes the opening image.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was.
Each episode has an initial hook. This is what this story is going to be about. This is what the conflict is. Where we might show who the antagonist is, maybe, or at least allude to them. But you're going to see what the conflict is. Hey, this is the problem we're dealing with this week, guys. Supernatural, notorious for that. Let me show somebody getting killed by some new monster. That's brewing conflict antagonist. Bam. You already know Supernatural every single episode. This week on Supernatural. It's like we're dealing with... That's essentially what it is. That's your initial hook. Oh, this week they're going after a Wendigo. Alright, this week they're going after a demon. a new demon. They're going after Crossroads demon. They're going after this demon. They're going after that demon. They're going that's like they're going after the demon. It's like, it's like that's the thing. It's something that you already know. Like one, and again, once you get further into a series, or especially a perpetual, like an ongoing series like that, you've already set the tone for it, and all your consequential or subsequent your following episodes follow along that sort of style. Now, Shadow and Bone, a little bit different than Supernatural. They're not incidental episodes where each one is going along on that, right? They're really like trying to do like a single story arc, like Westworld, right? Westworld was another one that was like it has a story arc. It actually went over 2 seasons, and then they resolved that conflict, and we haven't watched past that because it didn't seem like there was anything interesting to follow. Oh, is that true? I have no idea, but what made the first season and the very first episodes of that stuff interesting was gone. Right? They finished it by the end of season 2. So,
going based off series, I wanted to know, like, talking about sitcoms, right?
Sitcoms or series? Sitcoms
I'm talking about
or
sitcoms.
Situational comedies?
Yeah, like, thinking about, like, because it is, like, a storytelling thing, right? Do they have opening? I'm trying to think about images for them,
Okay,
like
so yeah, all right. What's the initial? Again, you keep saying opening image. It's not opening image. It's an initial hook.
Okay.
Again, opening image is just an image. Okay, what you're gonna see first. Again, Avengers, Nightmare on Elm Street. They have opening images. Shadow and Bone had an opening image, but it's not an initial hook. Just because you show something in the beginning does not mean it's
okay. Well, then what's the initial hook for a sitcom?
Again, depends on what it is. So, for How I Met Your Mother, for Ted, right? His initial hook was, I'm trying to remember for episode 1 because it's 9 freaking series.
Because every time each episode he's like, we're gonna go.
Hey kids, have I ever told you the story of How I Met Your Mother? No. Is it long? Yes. Like, sit down, you're gonna listen to it. But it's not just yeah, but it's like the whole idea for that, again, it's like this dude's telling his kids and they're just like, I just can't, sort of deal. And it's like, it all started back in New York City, and that's still technically part of the initial hook. The opening images of him and his kids, but he continues the narration into the initial hook. And I'm trying to remember, it all started with my friend Marshall decided to propose. And you see Marshall down on his knee going like, will you marry me, in front of Ted? And he's like, yes. And it's like, what? It's like, good. Then you kiss her and you guys get like, great, fantastic. So again, that initial, it was like, you were not expecting that. And it was funnier because it's like, How Did I Met Your Mother? Is your mother Marshall? So your questions on that, it's like, it's something curious. And then it kind of goes into like, why was I doing this? Well, he wanted to be married, and so that was again part of establishing that that sort of hook on there. So you can still have that in there, and then the whole inciting incident technically for the rest of the series was him and Robin, right? That was the whole idea behind that. It's like, then I saw her face, like, from across the bar. It was crazy. Our eyes locked, and then that whole thing that everybody goes to bars that they want to find just happened, and then it didn't happen, and then it happened, and then it didn't happen, and then just back and forth before that. But again, that's completely different. So again, you could still have your opening image included into your initial hook, depending on the style, the genre, and what you're trying to tell. But again, what's the story they're trying to tell across the entire thing? And again, that kind of runs back to the old incidental episodes. Each episode of that was some sort of different conflict, and then they do a lot of recalls back to it.
Right.
So just like Supernatural, what's the initial hook for that to get people to go in? And I'm trying to remember if it started for Supernatural because there's like 15 seasons, and there's so many of them. I guess I gotta finish it.
Supernatural, I do too.
Like the first one, I'm trying to remember if it started with like the death of their mom. I'm trying to remember if that was one of the first ones.
No, now I need to know what it started with. I'm just like, I want to say that it was, but at the same time, no. No, I think I know what it is. It was
dad?
with Sam at
No.
school.
Yeah, but was he not having a nightmare?
Oh, maybe it was his girlfriend, right? I don't know.
Something happened, and I
Right.
could have swore he had a nightmare about their mom dying. I know it was at least in the beginning when they were showing that, and he kept
Maybe
having that
that's-
recurring nightmare. And I don't know if that was the very
I don't know.
first, if that was the initial hook for it, but it was like this mysterious fire that burst out, when in their home. Yeah, but again, that's an initial hook. You want to figure out what's going on, and then they get diverted off into this whole world of monsters and fighting monsters. And I think by the end of episode 1, Dean had pulled Sam back in because Sam was off at college. He had nothing to do with it, and that was initially what they wanted. Again, inciting incident, that happened. If I would argue that was the right way to try to end on an inciting incident of something happened. It still had an initial hook. It still established a normal world. It still established a conflict of some sort that's brewing out there of his family, and conflict with his family, and then him getting pulled right back in to that, and then now he's like, yes, I'm going to do it. And I think that might be beyond the inciting incident. I don't think it didn't technically end on episode 1 on the inciting incident, because an inciting incident already happened, which drove Sam back into that life.
And that's an opening, right? Like a open.
What?
I'm trying to remember how the first episode ended. Was
Yeah.
it open ending?
Again, all of theirs is open ending, including their series finales.
Yeah.
Not series finales,
That's
their
true.
season finales.
Yeah.
The season finales always end on open endings because you want people to come back,
Yeah.
right? And again, try to do teleplays versus, writing films, whether they be feature films or short films. Completely different. And I don't know if I finished that thought about short films. I'm trying to say, short films can literally be any part of, because we went off on Deadpool. I went off on Deadpool. It could be any part of, and say, like a feature film. You can literally throw in a short film right in the middle of a conflict. You don't need to establish anything. Okay? That's one of the misconceptions with a lot of indie filmmakers too, when they're trying to make short films for the first time, and they just don't understand. It's like, well, the audience has to know all the backstory. They have to know everything about my character. Like, no, they don't.
Versus telling it over time, right?
No, you don't even have to tell it. Again, your short film could literally be a scene.
I forgot what we're talking about.
Yeah, a short film could literally just be a scene, right? And a really interesting scene. It could be an action scene. It could be,
But it's not saying that you can't have those, right? Like, as long as it's just a scene.
All right, it's really understanding structure. You can have those things, however, it depends on what you're trying to show. Because say
For shorts, it's got to be something that's...
shorts, yeah, you don't want to try to go past the sweet spot for shorts is like what 10 to 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes.
That was 12 minutes.
12 minutes long.
That's
12
long.
12 minutes long. You don't have time to go establish all this stuff. Can you? Sure. Is it going to be as effective? I don't know. It might be. But still the same thing. Has to start with an initial hook. Right? If you're going to do it that way. Alright, but you don't have to. Your initial hook in the first... You could have a 5-minute short film and people will watch that thing. Right? And be entertained. That's your initial hook of like, oh, and again, if you leave it open ending, now you got room to go, well, I can make a sequel. No, I can make a trilogy. Or I can keep continuing this on like you're making little snippets of like a feature film. Okay? But it all has to start with an initial hook on your big story structures. Right? Like your series arc or your feature film. Right? Has to have it. Or you're going to lose your audience. I can't tell you how many times I'm just sitting there like, this is again why I talk during a lot of these things when I am bored
This is how
off
we make it
my
entertaining,
mind.
though.
That
If you
is-
watch a lot of our live...
We don't do those anymore, but yeah, our live
Well,
reviews that we used to
watch
do
them.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of our old live reviews on High Hooligan Films.
Yeah.
I think it's still up on the.
You
the
know how you
Facebook
can
page.
tell he's bored? He'll just keep talking. But the bad thing is that I kind of assist with that.
Yeah, I will start ranting and raving, but in like it's this ridiculous, stupid ways. I grew up on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I've always wanted to do my own version. So as a kid, so Yeah, that's where I come from with all that. But again, it literally has to stay. Hook your dang audience in long form storytelling. Hook your audience somehow. It could be something interesting, but allude to the conflict, allude to the style and tone of the rest of the film. Okay? Don't start off with a "Dear Diary, these are my friends. This is my life. Here's my past. Here's my problem."
It's still going
Like,
on about Shadow and Bone.
Yes, I'm telling you, man. I was so disappointed.
Yeah,
I ain't saying it was hyped up so much with the trailer, but episode 1, I am gonna give it another chance to go into episode 2 because it did get a little bit better by the end of episode 1. But again, I still don't even know who the main character's name is.
I forgot what it was. I know they did mention it at the end though.
And it was highlighted. I was like, oh, that's her name, and then now it's gone because again, all that stuff. Zero thing to build off
Not
of.
important enough to me to remember.
Absolutely. Build off of it. Get an initial hook. Why should we care? Oh, there's this big dark fold of dark space. It looks like dark mist and it's a wall.
Darkness.
So what?
Cloud of darkness.
So what? It's there. It exists. Right? And I have no idea what it does. It exists. That's like saying Jaws. Like your initial hook for Jaws is like there's a shark. You're done. That's it. It exists. Not that it killed anybody, just
Yeah.
that it exists.
It's just there. There's
And-
a shark in swimming.
You essentially like
I mean, you could build something, but it was just then you lose it, right? Like it goes flat, and you're just like, okay.
yeah. That's why I love
Yeah.
Finding Nemo at the end. It's like, now what? That's what we feel like. It's
I
there.
love that thing.
Hey, it's like, hey guys, we're here. Yeah.
Oh, what?
Now what? Just, what do we?
Stuck.
I have nowhere to go. I have nothing of interest. And I'm sorry. I hate to say this was kind of like a, just ranting on Shadow and Bone. But that's where it started from, was watching that. It's not that we haven't seen other ones, but I was just so massively disappointed in episode 1.
Well, because we were so excited to watch it,
No.
And like, I feel like we get that sometimes with like trailers. It's like we get hyped up about it, and then we go watch it, and we're like,
Man.
your trailer editor was great, by the way. That's a positive.
And even then, they're still following a format for that to hook your audience, right? Whether it's a teaser trailer, whether it's a full trailer, all that stuff, you're still hooking your audience in something. And unfortunately, they're telling their own stories when you're in your editing trailers, right? They're finding other micro stories that may or may not be a part of the main thing, the main piece of work. However, that's a whole other conversation with that. Anyways, but if you are into storytelling and you want to do that, be sure that you're researching what makes a good hook, right? Test it out. Have people start out with it, and you don't have to be like that. Picture this. It's like, did you tell me that?
Well, you were pitching to me, and I was like, just start with.
I wasn't pitching to you
picture this.
anything.
You were telling me something. It was the Mortal Wombat thing.
Oh.
But we can't give out all our secrets on here. So, anyways, but I told you to start with picture it,
I didn't have
and then to go into the description of what you're going to tell me. Like, I think it's funny. Like, I love that stuff. Like, as much cheesy as it is for producers, picture this, or directors, picture this. I don't know. It's one of my weaknesses.
Great. Now we're like, let's picture. Let's picture.
Don't
Picture this.
Oh
It's
no.
You set
Anyways,
yourself up for that one.
I did.
Yeah. Anyways, so please develop a great initial hook. Watch movies that you enjoy and go back to it and see how it starts. What's your initial hook to drive you? What got you hooked into that, right? From the very beginning. Okay, why did you continue watching it? There are reasons why. And it's how they form their storytelling. So, work on your initial hook, guys. We might go into other elements of storytelling. I kind of like going back to the filmmaking on Thursdays, I think. But yeah, thanks for joining us for our live lunch. Again, if yes, Steve, I'm gonna go right into it. Hit the subscribe button if you like this, like what we're doing and the information we're giving out to you. Like this video, share it, and then you could also support us, become a hooligan yourself, become a hooligan at our Patreon, patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms. or buy one of our RPG IRL shirts or the Wandering Killsman shirts. We kind of gotta go back to that. It's like, I'll tell you later about that. But yeah, you can get one of our RPG IRL shirts, or one of our Wandering Killsman shirts at thewanderingkillsman.com/shop. Thanks for joining us, guys. Have a great rest of your week, or your pre-Friday or Friday Eve.
Friday Eve.
And we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
If I can get this thing, I swear.